Well, good morning, everybody. Here's the plan for today's forecast video. We're first going to walk through some of the metrics we continue to keep an eye on with respect to winter moisture recovery. And then we're going to get into the near-term forecast. I'm going to stretch that out into a long range, which I'm excited to share with you, which is where we're going to be looking at what's going on with El Nino. We're going to ask these questions about the MJO, look at all of the model data because almost all of it is in now, go out as far as we can into summer with that data, and then I'm going to finish with some South American information. So that's the plan. The map I've been talking over is the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation, and one of the, I think, major wins for our forecast this winter have been down here across the south. And this is an area that we felt like we had pretty strong signals of returning a lot of moisture, and once again we have another week where that's been the case. The area that I think that that I believe I got so wrong in the forecast was, if you remember back into December when it was so mild, I said I think we're just going to have a back half weighted winter, and I should have rephrased that, not back half but like back 10th. I don't know. We had one cold shot at air, and the one that's coming through now is relatively limited in its capability. And we do need to talk about if there is more reason to think about cold air coming at some point in March or even in April. We'll do that in a few moments. But it's kind of just a misstep. I really thought we'd get into a better pattern in January, and it really only came in once in terms of colder air. So anyway, with all that being said, let's check in on our newest drought monitor. And this is nice. Look at this change here. We've recently, all that moisture that's coming to parts of the Delta, the lower Mississippi River Valley, the south, southeast, has just continued to erode away drought. The places where it is building, in fact, let's just go look at it. We'll go to maps. We'll go to change maps. You'll first see what changed just between the previous drought monitor and this one. But I'd like to go back to almost the beginning of the year, which is almost 7 weeks now. And you can really tell where the improvement has been, right? I mean, it's down here in parts of the Midwest, Mid-South, and coming out of the south into the southeast toward the Mid-Atlantic. That has been just the subtropical jet doing its thing. But that subtropical jet, which has been most dominant, that's the one that's farthest to the south, has left the northern Rockies out. Now, the good news is there's winter storm warnings out for this area today. We're going to be adding some snow into this area, and we desperately need it. But it's important that we just continue to watch this drought monitor and its evolution. Just remember that the drought monitor is not designed to capture rapid fluctuations in precipitation, right? It's a long-term cumulative statistic. It's a phenomenal product that we have, and I just want you to make sure that you're using this site. You can Google drought monitor and find it. All right, let's get over to the snowfall side of this. What about these last 3 days? So we've added up more in parts of the Southern Cascades and Sierra Nevada. Good snow's coming in here. I love this. We got to pack in more, but good snow in parts of the Northern Rockies. Then we watched a system roll out here, and that is the one that followed the one that came through parts of the New England, the snowstorm earlier in this week. Now, what's not shown on this map is the snow that came on this side of the Great Lakes in Ontario and into Quebec with this. You can just imagine that continuing, but a good coating of snow here that's going to last for a couple of days. It's melted somewhat because it was a bit mild yesterday, but we got the cold air coming in temporarily that's going to keep this around. But that brings me to my latest map on snow water equivalent. This was through midnight today, and that's what we've got around the country. Now, to be honest with you, as we approach March, the snow water equivalent maps fluctuate wildly if you're east of the Rocky Mountains. But west of the Rocky Mountains is where we really have to pay close attention to these numbers. Because once we get past March, things begin to shift in April, and then by May, we're talking about how did the snow melt versus what do we have. So let's go look at the upper Colorado Basin first. You're looking at this thick blue line right here. We're currently at about 92.5% of normal snowpack on the upper Colorado Basin. That means that river is going to flow this year. How far can it make it to the Baja? Yet to be seen, but we still have March to go through, and we can sometimes get some pretty good snowstorms in the Rocky Mountains in the month of March. Going west of there, let's now take a look at what we've seen in terms of basin average snow water content. Let's click that one more time. But there we go. We got this idea about what the West looks like right now. And since the beginning of the year, in fact, let's just go look back at the beginning. Let's go to January 1. And that's the beginning of the year where we started. And the recovery has just been incredible. Going up here to February 15th. Look at that. It's just great snowpack into this area, better in the Sierra Nevada. We just need to continue to work hard on the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies. That's been a constant theme in our forecast videos as of late. I want to show you a map that is looking at season-to-date snowfall. And this goes through yesterday at about 9 a.m. So this map will update later today about 9 o'clock in the morning. And it just really kind of shows those places that continue to get missed, honestly. And I like to look at it, in this map, which is the percent of normal. And again, the big change between a year ago and this year is that we have, 15 to 40% of normal snow so far this year across the upper Midwest and Northern Plains. I mean, there are some places that have had less than a fifth of their normal snowfall. I mean, it's incredible to think about that. And it was great to see the snow sneak through here, but it really didn't make a dent in these statistics, honestly, in this area. Otherwise, we can kind of find this other stripe from Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and this extends into parts of Pennsylvania, New York as well. And then the West. The West has been getting more into this color range. That's where I want it. Get it above that 90% mark. Get it up toward 110. That'd be fantastic going into this spring and summer. Now, with all of that being said, let's go back to the beginning of winter, December 1st, and show you what the root zone soil moisture looked like from NASA. Just remember, this is a percentile. This isn't a percent. So what that means is when you see this number down here, that means looking at the distribution of data, it fits in that lowest 2 percentile. So thinking about what all that means, I was just having a good conversation with a colleague, Eric Hunt, out at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and we were just discussing, like, hey, the way you look at this map is you don't look at it for values. Blur your eyes, have a close, not a close look, have a kind of a look from afar and just say, where are the drier spots and where are the wetter spots? And then we want to measure it against itself, which is why we look out there and see that the current data still show issues with root zone soil moisture. And my eye, of course, is drawn to where I live, which encompasses part of this northern part of the Ohio River Basin, getting over toward this section of the Missouri River Basin and then the Mississippi here. There are still areas that need to have really good spring moisture to help that recover. But that's also to point out what's going on in North Carolina, northern Florida. And there are a few pockets that are still showing up with, less than adequate soil moisture throughout parts of the plains. From here, one quick look at the Mississippi River. This morning it's 12.5 feet above low stage. As we kind of talked about, this will bounce around for a while. It'll just do this with every event. But if it stays in this range, we're in good shape. The river is in good shape. So the last thing I just want to bring up to speed on are the stats. And so this goes from the beginning of the year to February 15th. And this is precipitation rank by climate district. We watched this all week, and I just wanted to give you the newest data here. And feel free to pause the video and have a closer kind of look at this. Okay, so those are the things I wanted to recap. Let's now get into this forecast. It's kind of fun to be looking at the pattern today because it's dominated by, as we've been watching all week, this large high over this broader trough to the south, right? So that's that high over low pattern. But what's unique about it is right away on the backside, we're starting to punch in a piece of the Pacific jet that's going to hit the west coast with multiple storm systems this weekend. And then there's always little short waves. There's like one right here. There's a broader one there. There's one here. And just remember why we identify short waves. Here's another one there if you're looking at all of these. Is that if you take them and cut them in half, okay, just remember that it's always here where I'm placing the X's that you end up getting your low pressure development. And so that's why we watch for short waves. Their upper level dynamics suggest that there is what we call divergence in the flow. Air, for lack of a better description, spreading out. And in order to fill it in, because we're dropping the pressure, air has to spiral in near the ground. So let me show it. I mean, you got your eyes on these four areas? What I'll do is I'll just take you down. Let's go down to 850 as an example. And there they are. 1, 2, 3, 4. See the lows curling up there? And we have one rolling through the Midwest right now, and it's got some support with some colder air on the northern side of it. There's some stronger winds that are through this parts of the Snake River Valley right now as I record this because of the flow around this low. And there's a big one sitting off the west coast while one exits the east coast. And the net effect of all of that is this. So we have issues with the winter storm warnings here. There's still the ice risk today. Where that next wave is currently sitting, large area winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings. Love it. We need the snow here. Then we're going to keep an eye out on a system that's rolling through here and is expected to get into mid-Atlantic. This is all winter weather advisory, but we've now seen winter storm watches going out here and strong wind advisories farther to the north. We still have the flooding issues. It's what you see down in these polygons to the south here that are down in parts of the Delta, lower Mississippi River Valley. And then again, once we see this system sneak through the mid-Atlantic, all attention is going to go back to the west, where we do have the winter storm watches for the Sierra, and we have the flood watches now for this part of California. Let's start off on that snow side of things, though. This is the probability of getting 2 inches over the next 72 hours. And it really kind of just defines the lake effect we're going to see out of this, plus the system that goes right through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, follows the Ohio River, and then heads into the mid-Atlantic. Biggest snows out of this will likely be on this side of the Appalachian Mountains. And then still have the snow coming out of the Rockies right in through here. That's going to add up as well. Probability of 4 inches. Let's just walk through it real quick. There's your best chance at 4. Kind of in and around St. Louis has got a pretty good shot, I think. And the heaviest snows here. And then we can see the lake effect side of this. And then there's 8. Now, after this, we're going to have to just watch the west for some big snowfall totals. I'll show you that in a moment. But let's get into the high-res models. My kids are kind of excited. We live in one of the spots where there's kind of a snow hole. Okay, so I live right here where we had less than half of normal snowfall so far this year. In fact, I'm curious. Yeah, we've barely had in total probably 5 inches of snow. So when we start to see the forecast giving us a winter weather advisory, that's my county, that little rectangle right there, Champaign County. We just have to see when the snow's going to get here. So this is through this morning on the high-res NAM. Getting to around midday, nice little band of snow in through here. That's the second wave coming into Wyoming, adding some snow. Here's the high pressure that's going to drop the temperatures. And then as that little system rolls over the Ohio River Valley, bringing rain into Tennessee and Kentucky, snow farther to the north, this is going to get over West Virginia, biggest snows here, and then add some snow into the D.C. area, and once again hit this part of New England and mid-Atlantic. Now behind it, lake effect, because the lakes are still so warm, and ice freeze we talked about. But then we're going to watch a huge surge on the subtropical jet get across parts of Florida in this. This snow that's expected overnight tonight into Saturday morning isn't much to talk about, and it fades away pretty quickly as it tries to move toward the Texas Panhandle. But in through the middle of the day on Saturday, very heavy rains here, and that big low, this guy right here, finally delivers its front into the west once we get into Saturday afternoon and evening, and starts to push moisture into that area. Now after that, again, that takes you all the way out to Sunday midday. A lot of attention is going to be on the west. But through Sunday midday, still heavy rain in Florida, and you can see the flow coming around the backside of this broader low that's over the east and the lake effect that you're going to get out of it. So we need to transition quickly to our kind of global models and focus in on North America and see the same pattern. So there's noon Friday. Today, getting into this evening. Let's now work our way into Saturday morning as it moves through the mid-Atlantic, so you can kind of see the trajectory today and tomorrow. And we're going to watch the heavy rain spread across Florida after that while the lake effect snow gets going. Much colder air dives in following this system, and then keep an eye on the west. So what we have here is one push coming through on Saturday into Sunday, the second one finishing Sunday into Monday, deeper low there. That one's going to last until Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Look at that. That's a whole 5-day stretch. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that we've got persistent onshore flow into California. We're going to see how much snow that adds up in a few moments. But for the rest of the country, until we get out there to like the 22nd, 23rd, things are relatively quiet after this system rolls through today. So let's add it up in the high-res Euro first. Total accumulated precipitation. That's through Tuesday of next week. We're going to take it out a full week and stop it right here. And there you go. That's the newest update. So heaviest precip in Florida, California, Oregon. Drier in large areas. And if you compare it to the GFS, you get that. So European GFS. Now, I noted that the GFS is much more aggressive on snowfall in California, Sierra Nevada mountains. And I want to go in and show you that. Because when you compare the two models, just a couple of interesting things. The GFS is much wetter in a few key areas. And I think it's just important to realize that when you compare the models, because normally we talk about the European having the wetter bias. It's the wetter of the two models. But Florida, the Ohio River Valley, the Sierra Nevada, and this part of coastal California, looks like the GFS is the more aggressive of the two models. And some of that's going to be snow in the west. So let's just park it right there. That's through Sunday. So you can see, remember, I start blue at 4 inches. So there's going to be spots in here that are picking up probably 2 to 4 inches of snow in this part of Illinois and Indiana, and then over into Ohio. And then we see much higher amounts right up here in the Appalachian Mountains, and a good 2 to 4 inch event, I think, in and around the DC area based on the European model. Lake effect snow, watch the west though. This is Sunday. Remember, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, multiple systems that roll through. You add up a week's worth of snow out there, and there's the chance of picking up 2 to 4 feet in the Sierra Nevada. The Rockies grabbing a good amount as well. But the GFS is much more aggressive. Some places they're suggesting getting up to 4 feet of snow out of this. So again, real quick, that's the European and that's the GFS. I like the agreement right now. Models are in a good, decent agreement for most of North America. Okay, how about some probabilities? Best chance of getting 3 inches is where we're going to start. So again, right in through here, and then Appalachian Mountains, lake effect, and then right into this part of the mid-Atlantic. You then see out west, these totals get much higher than that. That's the probability of getting 6. This is the probability of a foot, 18 inches, 24 inches. We can just keep going up, and you're just going to find the Sierra Nevada out of this. On the total precipitation side, who has the chance at staying dry? Just like we've been doing all week, this is the probability of getting less than 1/10 of an inch of total accumulated precip. So it's really identifying these two areas right in through here that are going to be dry in this pattern. If we step it up to a 1/2 inch, that's a much broader area. And you say, whoa, why is so much of the country left out of this flow? It's because it's going to target the West Coast for a while until we get rid of flow coming in like this and the subtropical jet staying way down there. These two things need to come together into the middle part of the country. And overall, they're not doing that for much of the next 10 days. Remember, it's March that we're most interested in that changing. So on the wetter side of it, this is the probability of getting an inch out of this pattern. Here it is at 2 inches. So our heaviest is right down here in Florida and then over into California, Oregon. And just to make a point at how much moisture we could be getting into California, that's a probability of 4 inches out of this. Now, all week long, you know that I've been paying close attention to this guy right here, right? This is the 23rd. That's been our target date. We've now seen yet more evidence that the subtropical part of the Pacific jet does some retraction. The polar branch begins to show up right here. And going from this Friday, next Friday, the 23rd, toward the end of the month, the models continue to do this, bumping out a ridge here between Alaska and Hawaii. That means split flow. It's going to come around the bottom and over the top. And what this is going to do is likely set us up with some good southwest flow to introduce a new month. And as I just watched this trend continue, it's actually gotten deeper out there February 28th and 29th with the West Coast trough. And all that this tells me is if we bring a flow in like this into March, it is going to open up the Gulf. We're going to get multiple systems rolling through, maybe 1.5 a week. That's good. That's a March. That's what we want. Spring is spring for a reason. We've got to get it to recover moisture. And West Coast troughs get the job done. Now, the models have yet to fully reflect this, right? So they'll take time to see it. But here we go. That's the CPC forecast, European, and the GFS. So I think the CPC is probably the more accurate representation of this, showing that activity is going to start to increase. And that's what we've got here. All right. I also want to show you what they came up with yesterday. This 23rd to the 29th time frame, they've also increased the risks here and here for additional snow. Same thing with downwind of the Great Lakes in New England. So this is like the 23rd to the 25th here, and then this is like the 26th to the 29th here. They also are on the lookout for increased risk of heavy precip parts of the Mid-South, and then here along the West Coast. And on the wind side of it, they're talking about as that jet gets invigorated and dips in the west, we just need to be aware that we could get some stronger winds across the United States with this pattern. That's March. That's what the end of February and March might transition into. Okay, temperatures, and then we'll do some long range. This morning's temperature about 5:30 Central Time, single digits. Look at this. We got some cold air coming in. We just need to ask how long it's going to last, because later today it's going to continue to push south, be supportive of that snow I mentioned in this area. But this is so short-lived. That's Friday, that's Saturday, and then by Sunday into Monday, we're already making the bounce. This is next Tuesday. We're talking 70s in Kansas, 60s in Nebraska, 50s and 60s in Iowa, and then it gets warmer. That's the Wednesday of next week and Thursday. And the longer range forecasts just continue to pump in that warmer air while the coldest air retreats to Alaska, and we lose any sort of a signal for keeping cold air around. So that is day 5 through 10, and that's day 10 through 15. I mean, you've all seen this before, right? I mean, this is it. This is where the jet will live. And that's why it's going to come in, dive, and open. And that's what sets us up for an active start to March, I think. And it's also echoed in the European. That's day 5 through 10 of the European, and this is day 10 through 15. Very similar forecasts being echoed in both models. Now, to make a point of this, I just want to let you know, this has been, I think, a very, very solid forecast by the European model, saying we made it to phase 7. We've reduced the risk of coming out here. If it did this, we'd be talking about cold. You know that. But the model's now just curling this MJO up here, removing it as one of our bigger signals in the longer term. So what I'm asking is, and I told you this at the beginning, where is our evidence to make a call for really cold conditions as we go into the month of March? It's not in the MJO, and it's certainly not in the polar vortex. The polar vortex is disrupted. Look at that ridge right there pushing into it. But what it's done is it's squeezed it and shoved it over into this part of Russia, and that is critical. And I want to tell you why I'm watching this. So this map right here is one that I'm going to stare at all weekend. And the reason is, see where that coldest air is? That's where the polar vortex is disrupted. But notice here and here, we've got very mild conditions. And these are the Himalayan mountains. And what we can often get out of this is a quite invigorated branch of the polar jet coming into this area. In other words, we're putting the squeeze on the atmosphere here. Warmer from the south, colder from the north, large temperature gradient, huge thermal wind relationship, disruption from the Himalayan mountains, and this can sometimes just crank. And I want to know what it's going to do, because what we've seen so far this year is it's helped invigorate, because of the MJO's position, the subtropical jet. I want to know about the polar jet and what it does and how does it eventually get over here toward North America. Because if we could get the polar jet to come in and do something like that, we fix our northern Rocky snow problem, our northern plains moisture problem, and we likely see quite a bit of March severe weather across the south, mid-south, southeast. Now, we don't want severe weather, but what severe weather also comes with is moisture. And I'm all about getting rid of drought going into this year and recharging the soil. So that's what I'm watching. That idea is being played out in some of the longer range models. This is the newest update for the month of March from the European. And again, if the polar jet targets this area, this is biased too dry. But it is suggesting opening up a corridor here of quite active weather in the U.S. And even though you see Texas on the drier side of this, it's not as though we're making this really aggressive call for drought development or redevelopment in Texas right now. Okay, I'm worried later, but not right now. So that's what I want you to see for March. That's been a very consistent picture in the European model. Okay, does this fit with climatology? Well, every year that I use to make this graphic is an El Nino year, where we came off a peak in winter. In March, we were transitioning toward neutral. And what did they do? They gave us the cooler risk here, which sends the jet south and then just rips it across the country like that. And that's why this whole area is wetter. Now, will this year be a year where there is a drier bias here? I don't think so. Will we keep the southeast wet? Yeah. And just note, there's only a few of these years that actually make the Pacific Northwest on the drier side of average. But that's what happens if you take all of the El Nino years, and I showed you this twice this week, but you take all of them, put them together as one composite map, and look at the temperature and precipitation pattern. But I bring that up to show you this. It looks very similar in the precipitation outlook. Now, what is El Nino up to? Well, let's finish this up with some long range here. Okay, how quickly is it fading? That's our first question. How warm is the Atlantic? And what's going on with the ocean temperatures here and here? Now, I'm going to tell you something. For this year, I am less concerned about El Nino and more concerned about the North Pacific response and the Atlantic response in ocean temperatures. These two areas, right here and here, are critical if you are in the West or Midwest in terms of your moisture and summer temperature pattern. This is what I'm just watching for the hurricane season. Well, it's a badly drawn oval, but right in through here for the hurricane season. I did not get a chance to read through all your comments last night. I got in about 1:30 in the morning and just needed some time today to do that. But I did get some requests to talk about the Atlantic meridional overturning current. We'll talk about that at some point. And I will come back to that volcanic eruption and kind of give you my latest thoughts on that very soon. So I will get those answered. But right now, these are the things. How quickly is El Nino fading? Well, it's not fast. There's its peak around Christmas, and we've just lost, I don't know, a third of a degree. And it's going to continue, I think, on this slower retreat. Now, there are models out there right now that are trying to absolutely obliterate El Nino, like the CFSV2. It's just cranking this thing down to full-blown La Nina by late summer. The European's slower. And I need you to know that, because models that are just destroying El Nino, like the CFSV2, are also just saying, okay, bring in a stormy March, April, May. And then by the time we get into June, July, August, or July, August, September, just a drought everywhere, like epic drought everywhere. And it's just one model. It is not a model that I tend to put a lot of reliance on. And what's interesting is this is one of the models in the suite of models that goes into the NMME. There's 8 in total. And what you notice is that the NMME for March, April, May does not match what the, where is it? MAM, I'm looking for that. There it is, sorry. Doesn't necessarily match what you've got here, right? I mean, it's a little bit different. So we look at that and go, wow, the drier area, if the model's advertising anything, is actually coming out of Central America. Sorry. And if it comes out of Central America like this, we just have to watch for it to possibly spread up the plains and crevice ridges over parts of Texas this summer. So you're looking here at the NMME. You're looking at the European model, March, April, May. Now you're going, wait a minute. You've never really dug into April, and I'm not going to be able to forecast April accurately for you. So we'll talk about it, but I don't have a good long range for it. But if we go out there beyond that to May, June, July, what I do notice is that all of the models I've got right now are trying to build dry risk out of Central America and up the Front Range, and they're keeping this open to storms. That's the thing. So are we looking at a summer where there's some sort of ridging over Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and all of this is just evidence of northwest flow ridge riding events, and then later in the year an active tropical season? Maybe that's what the models are telegraphing right now. I've got to wait and see. But I do want to show you what the newest update is from our Climate Prediction Center. So do this later today. Go to cpc.ncep.noaa.gov or just Google Climate Prediction Center and you'll be taken to this website. When you get here, go to the 3-month, click on this, just click on the word 3-month, and you get to this. So this was just updated yesterday morning. Let's go have a look at the March, April, May precipitation outlook. That is what the government says right now for March, April, May. What about April, May, June? Remember, when you look at these colors represent wetter, these represent drier. There's that concern I have, which showed up in the NMME, it showed up in the European. It's building this drought risk along the Rocky Mountains. That is April, May, June. This would be May, June, July. See it? And then let's go into June, July, August. And because of that look, this is also where they've got the greatest temperature risk. So, oh, sorry, I don't want to show you that version. I don't like those versions of it. Let's go to the temperature probability. There we go, June, July, August. They're trying to build in almost all the heat in the western United States this year. And what would make this a greater possibility of occurring is if these ocean temperatures stay warm. That's what that's related to. That change in El Nino, and that's what we have to watch. That's the only thing I've got that we can look at with any sort of confidence right now. So please go to the website and monkey around with this stuff and play with it and see what our government's got for a forecast, remembering that it's all speculative. Okay, last thing here today, South America. The models continue to show us drier conditions in Uruguay, Paraguay, and parts of southern Brazil, but very wet in the center west and the northeast. Storms are trying to return into parts of Argentina. It's not hot there right now, so the lack of moisture now is not concerning to me. But the lack of moisture, sorry about that, here is. And what we continue to see in the longer range models is that March could start to see a dry down in that center west growing area coming out of the Amazon. Just another day of evidence of that going on, while the northeast stays wet here and Argentina is still forecast to stay wet. That'll be a major story for safrinha crops, which right now are going in at speed and have some good rain to get them started and established. Okay, that was all I want to share with you today. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk again Monday. Thank you.